And the other one, there's a law in there that for financial levy or something like that. In other words, before you declare bankruptcy, you jack up all that. Hey, where you going? Have my drink. I'm not. Shot the beer? Oh, no.
I feel the same way.
Whatever.
All right, let's go.
If I can have the council members come to the table. Ready? Good evening and welcome to tonight's Warren City Council meeting. Before we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, we have a small announcement. Mr. Sadowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Normally we do moment of silences when a resident has passed away, but if anybody knows the gentleman, Marty, we called him the Flag Man. Marty passed away, I believe it was in about mid-November, the 17th. He was laid to rest yesterday. Marty, for most of us on council and most of the people in the legislature have dealt with him. He was very spontaneous, very passionate about the American flag. He worked with State Representative at the time, Paul Voino, to get Flag Month set for the, I'm not even sure what month. Donna, what month do we have it set up for?
We had it on, we were trying to get that for several years on the calendar for him too, for Flag Month.
Right.
And
Well, he went up to the legislature and worked with Paul Voino and actually had Flag Month set up, and that is now written into state law. And I know we've now included it in our calendar. You know, Marty would get an idea in his head, and he would drive either up to Lansing, he'd contact one of us on city council and try to push stuff related to the American flag. Very nice gentleman, and when we do the Pledge of Allegiance today, I'd kind of like to keep him in mind. I think at this point, maybe a moment of silence for him probably wouldn't be the best thing, and just saying the Pledge of Allegiance for Marty, I think would be in replace of a moment of silence. Ms. Comartin, I know you've worked well with Marty, and I know you have a few words about
Yeah,
him.
Marty had contacted me for many years in a row, and for some reason on the calendar, it was always something that never got placed on. And we worked so hard that finally we got it on the calendar for him. He did shows throughout televisions and had people come in and dedicated Flag Day. He was a member of the Warren Senior Connection, and he was a longtime resident of Warren, and like Mr. Sadowski said, he is very compassionate about the Flag Day, Flag Month, and his dedication. So with that, if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance for Marty.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, roll call.
Mr. Bacamino? Ms. Comartin?
Present.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Liss?
Here.
Mr. Sadowski?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Present.
Ms. Vogt?
Here.
Mr. Warner?
Here.
Camp present. I need a motion to excuse Mr. Bacamino.
Motion
moved.
to excuse Mr. Bacamino.
Motion by Ms. Comartin.
Support.
Support by Mr. Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Mr. Bacamino is not with us this evening due to doctor's orders. He will be hopefully with us at the next meeting, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Item number 4, adoption of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Green. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Comartin.
I'd like to remove item 4J.
Any other discussion regarding the consent agenda? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
Next agenda item is adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve with discussion.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Green. Discussion, Mr. Sadowski.
Madam Chair, nuisance abatement at 8240 Topher has been asked to remove this item by the administration. The owner has demolished the property, so item 10 will be removed from the agenda. Also, and I guess we can deal with this when we get to this point in the agenda, but under item 7A in the Building Authority list of checks, there's a duplicate payment check number 244 in the amount of $453,206.55 is already included in check 243 in the amount of $601,985.30. Also, Councilwoman Camp has requested to have an item added. That would be 15A.
I think you mean Ms. Vogt.
I'm sorry, Ms. Vogt. I'm looking at it. Ms. Vogt, that would be discussion naming of the new park on 9 Mile. The item that was removed for J 4J will now become 11M. And those are the changes.
Any other discussion regarding the agenda? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
Item number 6, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 9th, 2010.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Warner,
Support.
support by Mr. Green. Any discussion regarding the minutes? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
Item number 7, approval of the bills.
So moved.
Support with discussion, Madam Chair.
I have a motion by Ms. Vogt and a support by Ms. Comartin. Discussion, Ms. Comartin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Clark.
Good evening.
Good evening.
City Council.
I've got page 3, check number 86586. It's for $21,731.68. And this check is to State of Michigan, DNR, and ENV. I've got the backup on this, and it says that it's in regards to our fee for the testing of water, our drinking safe water. I've got a couple questions on that. Is Mr. Pelikowski still here? Good evening.
Good evening, Tom Palakowski. That fee is a fee from the DNR. That's a fee they charge us as a community. They have similar fees they charge all the communities in the metro area, and it's an annual fee they charge every year. So we are compelled to pay that. We have no choice on that fee.
Okay, I understand that. What I'm looking at is the testing results that are done on that. Where is that publicized for the residents? And where can they get the copy of that information?
The only thing we have that we publish is our drinking water quality report, which comes out annually, and that's sent out every year. And if they want copies of that, they can pick them up at the city. They're at various locations throughout the city, at the mayor's office, over at Water Accounting, and then you can get our water quality report at those locations.
Okay, so they can get the quality report at the mayor's office and also where, I'm sorry?
At Water Accounting, and also down at the Water Garage on Stevens, if they so want to have a copy of it, because we mail those out every year to our water customers. It's included in the bills when we mail them once a year.
And do you know what the last testing date that was done on that?
I can't answer that offhand. I could find it out for you and get that for you.
Okay, all right, if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. I had a call from some residents in regards to that, and they wanted to know where they could get the testing results, and I saw that we just had the fee on the bills,
Okay,
on
we'd
the
be
list
happy to
of
furnish
bills.
that information to you.
All right, the next check actually is for the Water Department too. It's on page 1, it's check number 86604. The amount on this check is $31,987.02, and this is for the meter reading services. Just wanted to ask you, for the consumers, how much are we paying on the billing on that right now?
As of October 1st, 69 cents per meter read for consumer.
Okay, so we're paying 69 cents?
cents.
Okay, now, it was my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, I just want to verify this, is you said that at our last meeting, I don't think the contract passed on this, and that we were looking
That was tabled
at,
at the last meeting.
it was supposed to stay at 65 until we had a contract change?
I don't think consumers is under that impression, because when they put that through, that contract for us to sign, they put it through as 69 as of the 1st of October.
Okay, so they did a change without council's approval on that?
That's what they have on this particular bill. If we have to change that, we'll have to go back and discuss that with them.
Okay, because through the chair to the city attorney, how does that work? If council does not pass a contract, and we have a contract amount that was presented to council, and there was no action taken, and now the increased amount has taken place without council's approval, how is that possible?
Ms. Michaels?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilwoman Camarton, I need to review the actual contract. Sometimes council can be asked to ratify a contract, and it depends upon the purchasing ordinance, whether or not it's the type of contract that would have to be presented to city council.
Okay, it was presented to city council
Okay, then
at
this
the
was
last
approved.
meeting.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay.
I would have to review the contents of that contract because it could allow for slight increases up to a certain amount. So if you'd like, I will review it and report
I
back to
think
you.
it should be reviewed without council's approval, for sure.
Okay.
At this point, I mean, we didn't have a contract that was approved on this, and then we've got an amount that's coming through, and it's going toward the increase already.
I think that check should be tabled until that's determined.
We could do a tabling on that particular check. The check, again, is check number 86604, so we can make that clarification.
86604?
Yes, in the amount of $31,987.02.
If we could hold off on that tabling, because I had a couple questions on that myself, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll hold that for now. Thank you, Mr. Polakowski, and thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my comments for right now.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Polakowski, on that item, and I went over the contract pretty thoroughly, I thought. We didn't approve the contract, and so there shouldn't have been a rate increase. But I believe the way we left it, we were going to find out about looking for some readers, and I understand that getting the readers has happened, or it can happen. The problem is the software that goes with them because of the copyright and everything. And I'm under the impression that Real was going to lease us the readers and the software for the 2-year period. How is that coming along?
I do not have any specifics on that. That is out for proposal. Those bids will be coming in tomorrow. We'll see, once they close the bids and open them, what that information is. So we do not have anything at this time to share with you on that, but that has been put out for bid.
And we're expecting the bids tomorrow?
Tomorrow, the bids are closed, so they should be open tomorrow over here at the council chambers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from council members?
Madam Chair,
Mr. List?
thank you for the floor. I recall the last meeting pretty specifically that Mr. Polakowski told the council that the water meter readings were going to be kept the same, at the same price that we had in the previous contract.
At the time we met last council meeting, the contract that was here was for the time period to go from June 1st of 2009 through September 31st, and then on 10/1, there was an increase going from 65 cents a read to 69 cents.
The contract
And
that
that was here with the council at that time.
the contract that we have with the meter readers has expired. You told me at that council meeting when you were here discussing
and that was
the
put up there for
contract
review and
that the
approval of
contract
council.
had, a previous contract expired in June. I'm going to support the tabling motion on that check because I can't see how we can pay the bill at this time until we look it through. I mean, Chapter 14 of the Warren City Charter, authority of the council, A, the power to authorize making contracts on behalf of the city is vested in the council and shall be exercised in accordance with provisions of law. And I don't see how we can pay it or continue unless we have at least some kind of temporary contract in hand, extending the prices until we get a permanent contract, or we see if we go to our own internal meter reader.
But one thing you want to keep in mind, if I may, is that the only people we have to read our current meters is consumer. If we don't read them, we have no way of getting reads for the customers that we have online. So we do have an issue with this.
Well, I'm not going to
And we have to
violate
resolve this.
I'm not going to vote to violate the city charter. It says that the city council has the power to authorize making of contracts. And we don't have a contract right now. I don't even see how we have an extension, some kind of an extension, and it doesn't work. It should have been brought to council months ago.
Okay, I have a motion to table check number 86604 by Ms. Comartin. A support to table by Mr. Liss.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Check number 86604 has been tabled. Any other discussion regarding the list of bills?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Okay. Any other council members with discussion on the list of bills? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
Next agenda item is 7A, approval of the building authority checks, meeting of November 10th, 2010.
Need a motion and support?
Motion to approve?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Ms. Vogt.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Comartin?
I need a motion to excuse me from check number 1397 for $50 for per diem.
Madam Chair.
Motion by Ms. Vogt to excuse Ms. Comartin,
Support.
support by Mr. Liss.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you. Could I inquire as to what that check is for?
Yes, it's a per diem.
Per diem check.
Yes,
So it's a reimbursement for expenses.
correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also have a question on check number 244. Since that was included in 243, shouldn't that be deleted?
We need to vote on excusing Ms.
I'm
Comartin.
sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, I thought that was related. Okay. I have a motion to excuse Ms. Comartin by Ms. Vogt, supported by Mr. Liss. Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Camp, yes. Ms. Comartin's been excused by a vote of 6-1.
Motion to approve the check?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Ms. Vogt. Mr. Stevens, this is
Thank you.
approval of the check that we just excused Ms. Comartin on. Thank you. All right, just checking. All right, Mr. Sadowski,
Yes.
Ms. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
No.
Mr. Liss,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Camp, yes. The check has been paid by a vote of 6-1. Now back to the original motion for the overall payment. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize for the interruption. As I was asking before, check 244, should that be deleted since it's encompassed in 243?
Yes, sir.
So we need to delete that from this before the rest of the checks are paid?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Vogt.
yeah, that check has been voided, correct?
Yes, it was voided at the building authority meeting. It was just an oversight and got sent over here on the list.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt.
It was Mr. Sadowski's motion.
Oh, I'm sorry,
support
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Ms. Vogt.
it. Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes without check 244.
Camp, yes. The item passed 7-0.
Next agenda item is number 8, budget expenditure report.
I apologize, before we go into
Yeah.
that item, I did not call Ms. Comartin.
You
She
did
can
not.
vote on
And I
the,
can vote on the other.
yes,
check.
I apologize. Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Thank you, and the item passed 8-0. I'm sorry, Mr. Sadowski.
Item 8 is next, budget expenditure report.
Motion to receive and file?
Support.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Liss. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The vote was unanimous. Item number,
Item number 9 is announcements.
any members of council with announcements?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Sadowski.
On December 4th, we will have the tree lighting ceremony over at City Hall. As usual, Santa Claus will be there, and we'll, I guess, light our trees up for the holiday, and they'll be singing, I believe, hot chocolate and maybe some donuts or something on that lines. It's always a lot of fun, and I believe it starts at 5:30.
5 till 8.
5 till 8? Okay. And the festivities, every year, it's always done very well. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really nice kickoff to the holidays. And hopefully it'll be cold enough where the ice skating rink will be open, but not cold enough to discourage anybody from coming down. So see you on December 4th at City Hall at 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Vogt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd also add there will be free ice skating all day. Skate rental will be $3 on December 4th, and there'll be petting farm, things for the kids to do.
Madam Chair?
But I do have 3 other announcements, if I may.
Sure.
Assistant City Attorney Jeff Schroeder is leaving. I believe tomorrow is his last day. He's going to the State Attorney General's office, so we wish Jeff a lot of luck in his new position. The Warren Sterling Heights Goodfellows is gearing up for the providing of food, clothing, toys for people who are in need. And in the last several years, they've found that the need has grown while the contributions have decreased significantly. Individuals certainly are having a more difficult time. Corporate downsizing has decreased the amount of donations, as well as some civic groups which are no longer able to provide the contributions that they have in the past. I am proud to say that the Warren Lions is still able to contribute $5,000 this year. Your donations to the Goodfellows is tax deductible. They will accept donations of food, clothing, toys, new toys for children they're going to need this year. And they will conduct their annual newspaper sale December 3rd, December 5th, 12th, and 19th. When you see the Goodfellows out there with their newspapers, please, if you could give anything, please stop and donate. And I believe they do need help. The individuals who are willing to go out and help with collecting those donations. You can contact the Warren Goodfellows. It's located right here at the community center in the garage on the west parking lot, and they'll help you out if you are in need of a donation. You can contact the Goodfellows. There is a form to fill out, and they do some screening to make sure that they're making their contributions appropriately. Again, whatever you can do to help, I know would be very, very much appreciated by many, many people. And finally, today is my granddaughter's first birthday. Happy birthday, Claire. I'm sorry Grandma can't be there. Thank you, Madam Chair. To you. Happy birthday to you.
All right, my son's going to be jealous. We got to do that on
Yeah.
December 4th. I have to go to a tree lighting on his birthday, so.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanksgiving starts the bell ringing for Salvation Army, so throughout the city, at many locations, you'll see the singing carols at bell ringing for Salvation Army, and if you can support their cause, they feed so many families and take care of the kids with toys and Thanksgiving dinners. It's amazing what they do for the community. Also, Dress an Angel, they do school supplies for the kids. They just really help out throughout the whole community. And I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. So, from our house to yours, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bacamino's accident had got me thinking, and for those that don't know it, he fell off of a ladder, hit his head, and was hospitalized for a couple days. I want to ask people to exercise extreme caution when putting up your Christmas decorations, and for God's sakes, please make sure that somebody is at home if you're going to climb up on a ladder, so that if an accident does happen, there will be somebody that will be able to at least assist you. Thank you very, very much, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To add to what Mr. Sadowski said about the tree lighting ceremony, what Ms. Vogt had just said, there is also visits with Santa, and the Goodfellows request that anyone that has a picture with Santa, please bring one canned good to be donated to the Warren Goodfellows. Thank you. And, one more thing. The new winter copy of the News Beat has been mailed to all the homes. Please look through it. There is a lot of exciting winter programs, both inside and outside, and we're looking forward to a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you.
Any other announcements? All right, seeing or hearing none, we'll go to the regular agenda item. Item number 10 was removed.
Item number 11A, request for approval of the City of Warren UAW Local 412, Unit 35 ratified labor contract.
Need a motion and
So
support?
moved?
Motion by Mr. Stevens. Any
Support?
Support by Mr. Sadowski.
Discussion?
Discussion, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there anybody from the administration here that, Mr. Simler, or?
I know Denise is here.
Hi.
Thank you. Unit 35, is this the same contract that the city employee, or the appointees follow also?
Yes, this is the same contract that, for benefit purposes, the all elected and appointed officials follow, yes.
So that once this is approved, then the 5% that the bargaining unit is chipping in through, their concessions, the same thing will be true of the appointees. They'll then be chipping in the same amount.
That's right, appointees and the health insurance for all elected officials, too, will be affected by this contract, the concessions.
All right, so the appointees and all the elected officials are giving up 5% to help out the city in this time of need.
That's right. Yep, the cost of the benefits was about 4.25%, just the health insurance savings, so yes. There
Okay.
were some other things that wouldn't be applicable, but like COLA and floating holidays and things of that nature. But about 4.25% is healthcare cost savings, yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Vogt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know Mr. Schimmel had talked about we need about a 15% to make things balance, and the 4.25, that is the health care. Good evening, Mr. Schimmel.
Good evening.
Well, can I ask, because I keep getting confused, what exactly is your title?
Executive Administrator.
I'm sorry?
Executive Administrator.
Executive Administrator, okay. Thank you. what's happening here is we're giving people who elect to retire an incentive to do so,
Yes,
and that's the big chunk.
yes.
And they get to keep their health care in addition to, they're keeping their same health care benefits.
If they were eligible for health care benefits, yes, they would keep the current health care plan as part of that incentive also.
Okay,
Yes.
so, but the employees who stay, they're going to have a reduction in their health care benefits.
They'll shift to the new plan.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Mr. Schimmel, I
I'm
can't.
sorry. They'll shift to the new plan.
They'll shift to the new plan. So we're encouraging people to leave, giving them a bonus, and keeping their benefits, and the people who stay behind, they're not going to get any pay cuts, right?
Right.
So just the reduction in health care, as well as giving up a couple of floating holidays, that kind of thing.
Cost of living.
Okay. I have some concerns with the budget, with the contracts as presented. However, it was an arm's length transaction between administration and the union. The union membership has approved these contracts, and they're all basically the same with a few little tweaks depending on the particular departments or personnel
Right.
that it applies to.
Right.
And we still don't have a resolution of police and firefighters, correct?
No, we're
You're working
cautiously
on it.
optimistic in meeting.
Okay. As I said, I have some concerns here, but because it was negotiated, because it was approved by union membership, I don't think we as council are in a position to override what the membership wishes, and I don't even know what to say to administration. So, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further comments from council members? I have just one quick question. In regards to the Buy American pledge, does that apply to appointees as well, where if they purchase a car, they'll get a $100 savings bond?
an American
Yeah.
manufactured car? Yes.
Okay, because what, if I'm reading this, I'm sorry, give me 1 second, I'm just looking for the right line. Anytime any bargaining unit member purchases, appointees and elected officials aren't actually bargaining unit members.
That's true. So I could be, the mayor could, that's very true, Councilwoman Camp. So the Buy American pledge may not be applicable to appointed and elected officials. That
Could you bring your microphone up, Denise?
Sorry.
You could be very correct on that if it's specific to bargaining unit members only. Appointees and elected officials would not be eligible for that $100, even if they purchased an American manufactured car. The mayor has certainly required all of his appointees to purchase American manufactured cars with or without that $100 savings bond. So
Yeah, I don't think it's
I don't think
it's
the
a make or
$100
break
is going to
deal.
make a difference for us, yes.
However, I do, what do they have to show? Just their first payment, or what proof do they have to provide that they just purchased that under this contract time?
They would have to provide the proof of purchase. I mean, the purchase order for the vehicle in their name and the title, yes.
Okay, I just didn't know if, because it didn't give any parameters of what needed to be provided in order to be eligible, and then it specifically did state any bargaining unit member, which council, any elected official,
That's right.
or I didn't think the appointees are actually bargaining unit members.
We are not bargaining unit members. We do contractually receive the fringe benefits, which that would be, but that is probably why we were very specific to bargaining unit members on the Buy American pledge.
Okay.
So we would have to Buy American. The mayor has mandated really that of all of his appointees to Buy American with or without the Buy American, the bonding or the savings bond. Yeah.
Right. All right, same as with the 1250, agreement. I certainly, appreciate the fact that the unions have agreed to the concessions in regards to the health care. I know that it will equate to almost, just short of a 5% savings for the city, and that is the bulk of it. But those up to $25,000 buyouts, I cannot support. I appreciate the service that the people have done, but like so many other people, 25 years, you're lucky if you get the gold watch anymore, let alone an additional bonus to leave. The concessions were made in majority of the previous contracts to hire in at lower wages. So for that reason, I will not be supporting the contracts.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Vogt?
with your statements, I have one question, or one other question, if I may. Does that $25,000 incentive apply to appointees as well?
The 20, it's $1,000 per year of service. Let me clarify that. So it's not 25,000, up to a maximum of 25,000. And I do not believe that appointees are excluded from that. The mayor has been pretty vocal about that, though, so with respect to his appointees. But there are appointees at the court that may be entertaining that incentive. The mayor's appointees would not be entertaining that incentive, so.
But they would be eligible?
They would be eligible, yes. Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
But
Thank
there
you.
are appointees at the court that are eligible, and that was one of the main reasons for not, making it exempt as a whole.
So are you telling us that none of the appointees in this administration are taking this?
Yes, that's what I'm talking
You
about.
can speak for all of the appointees, Ms. Williams?
Well, that's been the communication at our staff meetings and that type of thing. I mean, I don't want to get into a big benefits exposure here, but from my perspective and what I've heard from them and what I've heard from the mayor is there are no appointees entertaining this incentive.
Okay, but they could. I mean, for instance, I think you've been there long enough.
No, I haven't.
No?
And
Okay.
yeah, I'm not eligible at all. Yep.
Okay. All right, but it could apply to appointees. Thank you.
Mr. Sadowski?
I guess the appointee probably would be eligible, but they would have to step down as long as they could step back into a union position then at that point, correct? Like, I'll use the example of the former controller, actually could have stepped back into a
Treasurer's
position.
office.
Yeah, either into the treasurer's office, and
Sure.
then at that point, then they would be a
Then we
union
wouldn't
partner.
have any control of it. If they have the ability to step back into a civil service position and resign from their appointed position, we wouldn't have control of it anymore.
But they would
That's
step back at quite a reduced rate,
Yes,
so. okay.
yes.
Yeah, but that's a big bonus to step back. I'm sorry, okay, any other questions from council
There are
members?
many of the appointees that don't have the ability to step back to civil service positions too, such as myself.
Yeah, there's a few.
So,
There's a few that
and you
have
do
that.
have to meet the age and the number of years of service requirement, which there's not a whole lot of them in that capacity right now either, so.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
That was my question. Do you happen to know, you said you're not eligible, and you've been here for a little while. How many appointees would meet the time and service and age requirements?
Boy, I'd have to look at it, Councilman Stevens, but if there were a couple, that would be probably the most at this time.
Okay.
You have to have a minimum of 8 years of service and be over the age of 55, so
Right.
both things. So
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion from council members? Go ahead and call the question. Mr. Stevens?
Yes?
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Camp no, the item passed 7-1.
11B, request for approval of the City of Warren UAW Local 412, Unit 59, ratified labor contract.
Need a motion and support.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Stevens, support, was that Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Along the same lines? All right, I'll go ahead and call the question. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Camp no, the item passed 7-1.
11C, request for approval of the City of Warren AFSCME Local 1917 ratified labor contract.
Need a motion and support.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Stevens, support by Mr. Liss. There's no discussion? Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Camp no, the item passed 7-1.
Item 11D, request to receive and file the City of Warren AFSCME Local 1250 37th District Court Employees ratified labor contract.
Motion to receive and file with discussion.
Support. Motion by Mr. Warner, support by Ms. Comartin. Discussion, Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Schimmel? Or Ms. Williams? Or both? I just have one quick question on this contract, Mr. Schimmel.
Yes.
The
Are we-
floating holidays, why do they exceed the other three contracts? The other ones are being reduced from 5 to 3. For the court, it's 6 to 4.
The court had one more holiday than the others in the beginning, so we reduced them all the same, only they had one more when they
Okay.
started.
Mr. Liss is informing one is a state holiday.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Camp no, the item passed 7-1.
Item 11E, request to approve an increase in budgeted revenues and appropriation in the amount of $1,997 budget of the library to account for receipt of grant from the Macomb Intermediate School District to be used for the purchase of books and consideration and adoption of a resolution approving said request.
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Warner, support by Ms. Vogt. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Ms. Comartin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question through the city attorney, or if anybody knows, if the Library Commission also met on this for the grant, the receiving of the grant?
I was going to say Mr.
Oh,
Bacamino would have.
Yeah, okay. Well, I will ask Mr. Bacamino, thank you. when he comes back. Oh, is
She
she?
was, but I think she might have left.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she's in the corner.
Oh, there she is.
Before she comes all the way down, you want to just ask her if yes or no?
Can you wave yes or no, Amy?
Yeah, if you want to wave yes or no, I know you've got your walker there. My question is if the Library Commission met on this and is aware. Okay, great, thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Go ahead and call the question. Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes.
Camp yes, the motion passed 8-0.
11F, request to approve the additional appropriation of funds in the amount of $14,187 budget of the Police Department Civil Defense in order to provide sufficient funding for the Civil Defense Police Officers Overtime Account and Contractual Services Account for the balance of the fiscal year, and consideration and adoption of a resolution approving said request.
Motion to approve.
Motion
Support.
by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Stevens.
if the police commissioner's making his way here.
Good evening, Commissioner Green, and congratulations.
Thank
Yes.
you. Good evening, Council.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was the only reason I did. Yeah.
Well, I'll see you later then.
No, actually, this account was reduced substantially during the budget process. And then I noticed within the first month, the overtime money was gone. It was all used up right away.
Here's what happened. There's two things here. One's the overtime account for Lieutenant Summers, who's the only person in civil defense. And the second one is a contractual obligation. Council has a contract back in 2009 with the company that services all our sirens. It's a 5-year contract, and we talked about the last council meeting, why don't we go with longer contracts to save money? This is a perfect example of one we did. And that contract, the first year we had to pay, Ms. Michaels was part of this, the first year we had to pay $4,600, but the contract requires the total sum be paid in full in the second year of the contract to get a reduced rate for the duration, the 5-year duration. So that money is up. The budget was reduced to $11,600, so we're asking for money to make up the difference to pay off that contractual obligation. As far as the overtime for Lieutenant Summers, we were only budgeted $2,000 a year, and when we estimate or project what the budget's going to be, we look back on the lieutenant's history as far as cashing in overtime and how he uses his compensation time. This is not overtime, extended hours, or him working more than 8 hours. The only overtime that Lieutenant Summers gets is contractual. It's holiday pay. If he works Thanksgiving, he gets 4 hours holiday pay. So that's all that his is. In the past, Lieutenant Summers would always take AWOL. He never cashed the money in. There's 2 options, take comp time or cash it in. He always opted to take the AWOL time. So we projected that he would continue that pattern this year, and he did not. For whatever reason he's cashing in, you can bank up to 155 hours of comp time per contract. He's opting to cash in the last 3 or 4 pay periods, a certain amount, which is his own business, a certain amount of money, and that's a personal decision on his account as well, but it's a contractual obligation as far as having to pay that overtime. So it was just an estimate based on his past history that he changed what he's doing.
I understand what you're saying, but the contractual services that it's $6,500 that you're asking to fulfill the contractual services.
Correct.
The remaining $8,000 is for his overtime that, as you say, is also contractual by the contract. But I guess I have a hard time in that when, a budget is set, that we should live by the budget, and I understand that it's contractual that you're saying, but in my opinion, that contract should have never been approved for that reason.
The contract was approved in 2009, and we budgeted, our budget request for this fiscal year was $20,100 that would satisfy that contractual obligation for council and for myself.
No, I'm referring to his bargaining unit contract.
Okay.
You
mean with Lieutenant Summers' contract?
Yeah,
Well, here's the deal with that. Between now and July, Lieutenant Summers has the potential of getting 32 more hours of holiday compensation. That equates to about $4,000. We're anticipating that he's going to work all those holidays, so what we're trying to do is just make sure that we're budgeted correctly. And I understand what you're saying.
Right.
But it is a contractual obligation, and that's why I'm asking for the adjustment in the budget.
And obviously, past councils didn't pay very much attention to the bargaining unit contracts when they approved them. Otherwise, we wouldn't be going through this.
Well, I think, I don't want to say it's the difference, but this, in my experience, was a very lean year budget-wise, and we were pinching pennies and trying to cut as much money out of the budget as we could. So this was a calculated risk on our part, assuming that, and I shouldn't keep using Lieutenant Summers' name, whoever is that person would maintain the same pattern of how they were exercising their ability to take money or take comp time. So it was kind of like you roll the dice and hope things stay the same, but they didn't, and we have to ask for us to satisfy what the budget requirement is.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Comart?
Just a question. Good evening, Commissioner Green. After talking to you, and you went through the whole explanation earlier with me, just one quick question. A lot of times, since we are not in a line item budget, we go to another line source to take the money out, and I don't know if there's any other lines that we have available in the current budget to do that with.
This money's coming from the general fund contingency adjustment account, which is exactly what it is. It's an adjustment account. We can't use forfeiture money to pay for salaries or overtime. If there's another account available, you'd have to, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But I'm led to believe there is not.
All right, I have not had a chance to talk. I know Mr. Simone is out of town and he was not available, so, but,
I'm sorry. The only other thing I could add for council is that this contract with the company that does the sirens, that needs to be paid by the end of the month or we lose the discount. We had a 60-day window from September 1st.
all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments from council members? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Camp no, the item passed 6-2.
Thank you, council.
Consideration and adoption of an amended resolution approving a contract with Grant Capital Management Incorporated and Cogeneration Consultants Incorporated for the installation and financing of the wastewater treatment plant waste heat to energy project and authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute proposed contract.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Motion by Mr. Green,
Support with discussion.
support by Mr. Stevens. Discussion, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Manette.
Good evening.
The 700 and some odd thousand, where is it? 765,000 that we're financing in this resolution, is that accounted for in the next budget? There's going to be 7 years of debt service on this that
Yeah,
we're going to
yes,
finance
in
at
effect it is.
3.98%.
Yeah,
Is that in the budget?
The short answer is that the funding is being, the actual savings is being guaranteed by Cogen, and the savings is going to come out of our electrical line item account, because we're going to generate electricity, and that electricity that we generate, we will no longer buy from Edison. So the payment will come out of our electrical line item account in the budget.
So this,
Does that make sense? It's
it
already
it does,
budgeted.
I'm just trying to, I want to make sure that it's in here so I can account for it.
It's in the budget. It's coming out of the electrical line
But you don't have a
item.
separate line for it right now?
No, I don't.
Okay,
Not in the
so I have to
budget.
go to I'm
It's gonna
guessing
be a
it's going to be about
reduction.
$80,000 a month, or $80,000 a year.
Right, yeah, it's going to be anywhere from, we may pay down the balance quicker. There's
Depending on
no-
the savings.
Yeah, depending on the savings, but we expect a maximum of around $19,000 to $20,000 a month in savings. But
Which
this-
will be double of what?
Yeah, double. You saw the term for
Right.
the 7-year lease is around, I think, $12,000.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr.
Good
Monette.
evening.
I know that this is approved already, but what we're doing is tweaking it and making it even better. My question to you is, going over a couple of the things that I had talked to you about, going on the warranty, we're saying that with the warranty with the particular equipment goes for the term of a lease. With the savings that you have projected, you were looking at paying this off early, like possibly within 4 years or
Potentially.
4.1 years.
Yes.
My question is, with the term of the lease, are they going to honor that warranty that they have for their installation for the full term, even if we pay it off early?
Yes, that's the installation warranty, and yes, I talked to Cogen, and they said absolutely.
Okay, then the other question I had is, you have in there that after the warranty on the equipment that's going in, that with that particular equipment that we have, let's see, with that equipment, we have a warranty that comes by the manufacturer.
Standard warranty, that's correct.
Standard warranty, and that's for how long?
That's for 1 year after installation and operation.
Okay, 1 year on that. How much does the contract, because you're talking about a contract on maintenance, how much does that contract cost after the fact?
I think I misspoke. The maintenance and the way we set the terms up, Cogen will be responsible for training treatment plant staff, and ultimately, we will be responsible for maintenance of the system once it's installed. But they will be there for the entire term of the lease with us, providing training and support. So in other words, they'll be holding our hand as we learn to do the maintenance on the system, and then ultimately becomes our full maintenance responsibility.
Okay, is there a training period that they are giving to us without a charge?
Well, the training, they're sponsoring the training from the manufacturer, which will take place for a whole week at the plant. They were going to try to send my staff away to Florida for the training, and I convinced them to bring the training to my plant because that way I can get more people trained. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Okay,
And then that's the manufacturer training on the equipment. I will also have Cogen on site throughout the term of the lease. So I will have support, for a good extended period of time.
Okay, and according to the contract in the backup information, it says that the services that are required that we have if we need their training, that's $125 an hour. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's anything over and above what's not in the contract.
All right.
Anything contractual is covered. If we ask for services above and beyond what's in the contract, that's their rate.
All right, and their rate goes for the full 7 years, is that correct?
Well, whatever the term of the lease will be, I believe.
Okay, so if
But
we
yeah,
pay it
it
off
could be 7
early,
years.
if we pay it off early, it will only be for the 4 years, correct?
Probably so, yeah. They're obligated for the term of the lease.
Okay, and then the other thing is that in the contract, it talks about 1,000 gallons a minute that we are using. That water is not coming from Detroit water source. That
No.
is our own internal water?
Right, that's our treated effluent. We
All right.
currently use treated effluent to cool the incinerator actually, we use it for moving the ash out into the ash lagoon, and then we also use it as a coolant and as a pollutant control in the incinerator exhaust. So we already pump 1,000 gallons a minute to the incinerator. So there's going to be no additional need to purchase water or anything like that.
Okay, and the interest rate that we are getting on this, my understanding, it is a fixed rate?
It will be when we lock it in. That's the interesting point there is the rate that we calculated when we put this whole thing together was 3.85, and I just talked to Scott from Grant Capital, who stated that some things just recently happened. The rates went up above 4, but he said if we can get the deal done, that he would keep it at I think he said 3.98 to keep it under 4.
Okay, so he would honor a lower rate?
Yeah, he wants to keep it under 4 for us, and I'd like to get this thing executed within a couple of weeks so that the construction can begin.
All right, the other thing is for the savings that you're projecting, I know, looking at the past electric bills that we've had, I went back, we had 10 months that was presented, and I know that she brought forward some additional months. So we were looking at over $1 million in electricity costs.
Right.
So you are anticipating a good number of savings from that if the quicker we can pay it off.
Right. We're in the neighborhood of 25% of our electrical requirement we will generate ourselves with this system.
All right, now with your savings that you're projecting, are we going to put those savings in a separate item? If we could tag those items for the savings to go directly to the lease?
Well, right now the savings are, we're only going to take what we need out of the electrical line item to pay the payment.
Okay, so it's...
if there's additional monies in there, they'll probably remain because, sometimes, as I mentioned when I talked to you on the phone, electric rates go up, and they're anticipating an increase in electricity. So that's another benefit to this system. We generate our own. Now the value of what we just generated went up as well. But
Okay.
you never want to take money out of your utility line item account just in case your utilities go up. Because if I come back here and ask for more money, you'll probably not be happy with me.
All right, but we will dedicate the line item as far as the electricity. The electrical.
Right, we're anticipating the savings from that line item, so I think it'd be very easy to show our accounting and show where we're funding the lease out of.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other council members with questions? I just have one quick follow-up. The 0.13% increase that you just talked about in the overall rate from what you had estimated it to be, budget, you fully expect we'll be able to absorb that? I mean, I realize it's not a huge increase, but obviously
You're
this
talking
is
about the increase from what grant?
from the 3.85 to the 3.98.
Well, yeah, because it's the reduction we just achieved by coming back to you to do this. I think I had a 8.38 was what I was looking at, trying to do the private financing using cogen. So that's how much better this is.
Oh, no, and I realize that you've got
Yeah.
great savings, and I'm just concerned in the fact that obviously this information came to you after the budget was prepared.
Well, after these numbers were put together, we had a meeting on this.
Okay.
And then actually at that meeting, we were talking about it, and I learned that the numbers I put together in my summary were going to be off by a few dollars.
Okay.
And you know, I mean, anybody who's had a mortgage and you have a floating rate, it doesn't fix until you actually close on that
Sure.
loan. So that's what's going on.
Okay. All right, and thank you, Ms. Martin. Good questions on that. If there's no other questions, I'll call the question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
Good
Ele-
evening.
11H, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute a cost-sharing agreement between the Michigan Department of Transportation and the City of Warren for the resurfacing of Ryan Road from 8 to 9 Mile Road, MDOT Contract 10-5736 with the city's estimated portion of the contract construction cost at $202,300 and authorization to issue payment monthly to MDOT as outlined in the contract.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stevens. Support by Ms. Vogt. Discussion?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Sadowski?
Let me get to that. After reviewing the information, the contract, the total cost of the project is $1.6 million. The Fed's portion is just under $900,000, and Warren's construction cost is a little over $200,000, and then it has for Warren administration fees of $713,000, and that's also for project design. Mr. Shadid, when I add those numbers up, I come up to 1.8, but yet the total cost of the projects is 1.6. When I add the Fed's portion in, plus Warren's construction and what it says the project design, permits and inspection, I'm coming out with $200,000 more. This would be, I believe, the introduction letter that you sent over to us.
Good evening, Council. Todd Shadig, Acting City Engineer. The correct estimated cost for the project, Councilman Sadowski, is $1.1 million, as stated. There may be an error in the estimated overall administrative and project design and construction, or design and inspection costs in there. All you're approving this evening is the $202,000, though, for our participation with the state. I can check those numbers for you, the overall project cost.
Did you say the total contract cost was 1.1?
The estimated construction cost for the contract is $1.1 million.
Oh, if you would back out the design, okay,
Yep.
all right. Okay, I was just curious as to why the numbers didn't add up on.
So am I.
On that, so, but we're only approving.
The $202,000 this evening.
And we've had to cut back on the project, according to your letter, because we haven't been able to acquire all of the right-of-ways between 8 and 9 Mile.
If I could briefly, I'll give you the history of the project. It was proposed in the Transportation Improvement Plan in 2004. at, at a point in time where the economy is much better than it is now. We looked at that particular stretch for a widening project. We were going to add a fifth lane, a center turn lane, to make that area a little bit safer. The traffic counts since then have dropped since 2004, and we made a decision to bring back the scope of the project a little bit, and partly in reaction to the fact that we were not able to purchase all of the right-of-way that was required for that widening. So that's where we stand today. It's a simple resurfacing project at this point.
And I know it was a struggle even when you went from 10 Mile to 9 Mile. I remember there was one of the mini storages over there, we had problems with that. And you said that the traffic had dropped from 2004. By what percent? Do you know offhand?
When we programmed it, we were at 22,000 vehicles a day, which is borderline for a fifth lane, and I think today we're at 17,000 cars per day.
Any reason as to why that traffic had dropped? Any?
In my opinion, you have a lot of small shops that operate in that part of town that are obviously not working at the capacity that they used to, or they're not working at all. Same thing on the south side of in Detroit. There just isn't the traffic there anymore.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shadegg.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Shadegg.
Good evening.
Couple questions for you in regards to traffic pattern and regulation with us having problems with 9 Mile. We also had some problems over on Chicago and 13, where it was a very confusing pattern, and people were having a hard time to see where all the markings are. Who's going to be handling this project? Is that something we're going to be doing internal?
Well, obviously, our office will keep an eye on that part of it. The project is set up to maintain bidirectional traffic at all times between 8 and 9 Mile Road. We'll work on one side of the road to have traffic on the other. It shouldn't be split like we did on 13 Mile Road, where we had it outside and inside. It's not set up in that fashion.
Are we going to have any problems with the type of equipment or anything like that? We had some issues.
No, it's a different type of project. We're not removing the base pavement. We're only repairing what's there within the same footprint.
Okay, so you don't think that hours of operation or any problems with any businesses or anything else in that area, or is that strip encompassing more residential?
Well, there's obviously enough businesses down there. The hours of operation are limited from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. like most of our construction projects, and they would be allowed to work Saturdays if needed. The project is fairly fast-tracked. It'll start at the end of April and be done and open to traffic June 17th, contractually.
Okay, so April to June 17th.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
Just a couple questions. Number one, who did our last traffic count? Do we do that in-house, or do we farm it out? And second, when you look at our data for our traffic counts, do you also look at adjoining cities by chance? Thank you.
The Road Commission of Macomb County provides that information at no cost. And two, in relationship to this project, I did not look at what was going on in Detroit. I did look up and down the Ryan corridor, and there's been a general drop-off in that area, but most substantially between 8 and 9 Mile Road.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council members? I just need one point of clarification. You mentioned that the only thing that we're approving is the 202,000 this evening with this portion of it, but in our backup, as it states here, it says the 202,300 will be billed monthly by MDOT. That's I was under the impression that was a one-time payment in regards to the city's participation amount, and then the 713 was, I mean, we were going to have to pay that, but that it was separate, and I didn't expect it to commence until the project was underway.
We will not receive an invoice from MDOT until authorization is made by our consultant in my office to actually make a payment on the project. So we will be invoiced approximately a month behind that first draw. So on every one of these projects, we don't pay up front, we just pay monthly as it goes.
Monthly as it goes, but with the approval tonight, then it won't, you don't expect these payments to begin drawing until sometime in April, or it would
Probably
be a month?
Probably first one will be in May.
First one in May?
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other comments from council members? Go ahead and call the question. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
11I, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute proposed change order number 11, contract SWK-02-437, sidewalk repair, which increases the original contract with Mattioli Cement Construction in the amount of $993,750.
Need a motion and support?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Warner, support by Mr. Green. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The item passed, 8-0.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
11J, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute proposed change order number 2 to contract ITB-W-NSP-03-06 for Complete Construction Services Incorporated for the NSP rehabilitation of 11114 May, increasing the contract amount by $4,375.
Need a motion and support?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Stevens, support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion? For the purposes of people at home, just letting you know that this increase is based on asbestos tile in the basement being removed, gutters being put on the garage, painting of the basement floor, remediation of mold, things like that, so. All right, with that, I will call the question. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
Item 11K, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute proposed change order number 1 to contract ITB-W-8148 with Mondo Construction Incorporated for the construction of 3395 Capitol, increasing the contract by $634.35.
Need a motion and support?
Motion to approve?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion?
Just a quick comment, Madam Chair.
Mr. Sadowski?
On this item, the increase is, like you said, was $634. The option was to remove a tree or to change the way they put the drainage tile in the backyard. Actually, by moving the drainage tile and incurring the additional expense is probably going to save them money, because in order to tear a 24-inch thick tree down is probably going to cost about $1,500. So on that, you know, we do see an increase here, but it probably would have been more if we would have kept with the original plan and tore the tree down, so.
Well, there's also additional insulation to bring it up to the Michigan Energy Code.
Correct.
In that.
So,
Any other comments from council members? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Sadowski?
yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
11L1, consideration and adoption of a resolution rescinding council resolution adopted August 24th, 2010, approving the sale of city-owned property located at 2402 Sherman.
Need a motion and support?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Vogt?
Ms. Burgess, are you here on this?
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Burgess. Just briefly, can you tell us what's happening here?
I'm sorry, can you
Microphone?
turn
Your
the
microphone. Yeah.
No, he still can't hear you. Is the light on?
Somebody shut it off on me.
Yeah.
The council approved a resolution for the sale of this property at their August meeting, and since that time, the buyer, same buyer that is being recommended or being hopefully approved this evening for the sale of this property, received the appraisal from the mortgage company, and as the council can see, it's approximately $20,000 less in value than what the city's appraisal was back in August. Therefore, we could attempt to secure another appraisal, but the chances are that even if it's within 5% either way, the mortgage company is not going to approve over the $55,000 sale price that the appraised value or appraisal revealed in value.
Okay, so basically, we had an appraisal at $75,000 back in August, and that's what we approved for the sale. The bank appraisal came back at $55,000. So we know we're not going to be able to get anything more than that, and we have a buyer, hopefully, who will qualify for the $55,000, right?
That's correct. They have been qualified at this point, and it is the same buyer.
Okay, so hopefully it doesn't drop any further while we think about this. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has been in industry normer lately, that appraisals do not or haven't come in at the sales prices of a lot of homes. Normally, sometimes you can appeal, sometimes you can provide extra comps for any current sales, go through the assessor's office and see if there's anything that's an arm's length transaction that can bring it up. The max that you could probably bring it up would be about 10%. And I know time is of the essence. It is not a pretty picture, but sometimes if we can get a preview on some of those appraisals that we have, and just a suggestion is have some comps. We do have a real estate agent that we've got working for the city now, but have some comps available for those appraisers when they come through the house and provide those comps. It's very helpful, and it'll help maybe dictate a little higher value if they can supply those good comps ahead of time.
That's a great idea.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments from council members?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Stevens?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Our appraisal was done in August,
Yes,
and the bank's appraisal was done when?
within the last month.
October, okay.
I don't have the exact date.
How much are we paying for appraisals?
We have a set amount, but I don't have that with me this evening. I can get that back to council.
$200 approximately?
Roughly.
Yeah. In the past, I've been against the sale of these because we put the appraisal on there. And then when we put it out, it goes out with the appraisal on it, and then we have to wait for the buyer's appraisal to come in. I just think that's a bad practice to do that. Our appraisals should be kept secret and let them come back, or else let's not do an appraisal on the property. Let them come in, because it's the same buyer.
Correct.
Right.
One of the obstacles that poses or we face is that we need to have a starting point, a range at least, of an asking price.
Understood. I mean, we have to have the appraisal, but I don't like the fact that we put it out there. We should keep that to ourselves. And that's how I feel about it, and for that reason, I can't support this. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Comartin?
One other comment that you could do is if to save money in regards to the appraisal standpoint, you can have a realtor do a CMA, And that is, you know, a market analysis that will give us value to market the property at. So that's another way of possibly saving some money of the original appraisal, because sometimes the process is so long. When we get the original appraisal, they're only good for 6 months, and then you have to go ahead and get another one. And if anything, the trend of values have been going down. We did have a slight increase recently, very slight, I may say, but, you know, but that might help too, you know, to save some extra money in that regards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I may, Ms. Comartin, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe you'll remember this. My recollection, I thought we had adopted a policy on in certain situations where we would do the appraisals in-house, not contracted out, but it was through the assessing department, and it was, do you remember what I'm talking about? This was with George Constance. Oh, God. I mean, it goes way back, but it was a policy that we had adopted because we were trying to avoid those appraisals back then, and we were doing them in-house, so I'm sorry, I'll look into it later. Okay, any other comments from council members? Go ahead and call the question. Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
No.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed. 6-2.
11L2, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute the necessary documents to sell and convey to Tanisha Davis for the sum of $55,000 plus closing costs and property description as 8402 Sherman, Lot 128 and 129, Winchester Subdivision, parcel ID number 13-34-376-026.
Need a motion and support?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Comartin, support by Ms. Vogt. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call the question. Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
No.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Camp, no. The item passed, 5-3.
11M was 4J on the consent agenda. Request of the Water Division and Department of Public Works to approve award of bid ITB-W-8295 for furnishing genuine JCB OEM parts at the list price and factory authorized services at $99 per hour for a one-year period to AIS Construction, an estimated expenditure in the amount of $16,980 annually.
Motion to approve with the statement being put in there not to exceed $16,980.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Comartin, support by Mr. Stevens. Any other discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The item passed, 8-0.
Item 12A, this item was tabled on 11/9/2010, consideration and adoption of a resolution to establish a reserve in the financial statements for the water meter replacement project capital improvement bonds series 2010.
Motion to remove from the table.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Warner to remove from the table, support by Mr. Liss. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The item's been removed from the table.
Motion to approve?
Motion
Support.
by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Stevens. Discussion.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Sadowski.
Thank you. At the last meeting, council again had requested a few changes, and one of the things I just kind of wanted to make clear that council had asked the city attorney's office to draw up the statement, and they did so at the request that we had made. I think we might have left the impression that The city attorney's office did not draw it up correctly, but they did draw it up the way we had asked. After we had read it and had a little time to think about it, there were some changes that we had asked to be made, and these are the changes that are being presented to us tonight. So thank you to the attorney's office.
If I may, just for the part that stood out most clearly for myself anyway, that I appreciate seeing changes, the specific wording where it says, in addition, City Council voted to direct that the funds in the water meter replacement project reserve of the financial statements shall be used first to pay off the water meter bond debt and second to pay for water distribution system infrastructure replacement. I know myself, the definition of infrastructure was crucial, so I think that puts it more in line to what I was thinking anyway. Any other comments from council members? Thinking about it? Mr. Stevens?
There's the word replacement that's in there. It bothers me. There's a new technique that is out now. They used to, they would drag liners through the sewage, and they've now gotten the polymers down where it's okay to do that with drinking water, and they're now doing it with drinking water, and it makes the pipes like brand new. Technically, that wouldn't be replacement, it would be repair or rehabbing or something like that. And it's about 2/3 the cost, it's about 1/3 less to do that, and so I'm wondering if we're maybe tying our hands there.
Well, what about asking the maker of the motion to amend just that? I don't think it needs to be tabled, but just to amend that final line in the, just before the therefore be it resolved comment, because it does specifically say pay for water distribution system, infrastructure replacement / repair and/or repair.
True.
I think it's a minor enough amendment that it would be acceptable as this, with that noted change.
So the intent is replacement and/or repair.
Right.
That's my
But
intent.
it's the water distribution.
So for the record, that's my intent, and that's the council's intent.
Mr. Sadowski, do you agree to add that line?
The only concern I have with adding for repair is that, again, we get back into what it is that we're considering as a repair. And we may be thinking pulling the liner through as being repair, or in this case, or replacement or repair. But, what's to say in a couple of years that, well, we need the money to put, to replace valves or whatever on the system. Would it be okay then to use it to repair valves then? I just don't want us to get into the same problem that we got into with the infrared. Mrs. Vogt is...
What about just removing the word replacement? And second to pay for water distribution system infrastructure, period.
Then you still leave yourself wide open if that's his concern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Vogt?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Vogt?
Thank you. It's rather than repair, replacement or replacement alternative as technology provides.
I think that would,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can
Replacement
approve it
alternative?
with that language.
Okay.
Replacement or replacement.
Alternative.
Yes. Technology provides. Okay, any other discussion or questions from council members? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Sadowski.
Yes, with the change.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes, with the change.
Ms. Vogt.
Yes, with the change.
Mr. Warner.
Yes, with the change.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes, with the change.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
What's with the change? Yes.
Camp, yes, the motion passed 8-0.
Next item is 12B, Carolyn Kirkowski-Moseri, City Treasurer, in Ray, request to approve updated investment depository and consideration and adoption of a resolution approving said request.
Need a motion and support?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Stevens, support by Ms. Vogt.
Discussion, Madam Chair?
Mr. Sadowski.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer, for
Good evening.
coming tonight. The question that I had, and I'm just trying to get to it real quick, relates to the federal insurance program. You had stated in the letter that the banks that we'll be using do have the insurance for our accounts. What is the limit that we can have in those accounts that would be insured? Because I know it used to be up to like $100,000. I didn't know if it was different for municipalities.
Good evening, Warren City Council. Carolyn Kirkowski-Moseri, Warren City Treasurer. Thank you for having me. What you have before you today is pretty much what it's straightforward. It's an update of the banks that we do business with. One of the things when I ran for treasurer was that I told the residents that I would review all the banks top to bottom. And we have, and we've done. And what before you is what I believe, and many in our financial city believe, there's a very well-rounded group of banks. FDI Insurance on banks that we have savings account or CDs are insured up to $250,000. Used to be $100,000. You're right, Council Secretary Sadowski. It was lifted to $250,000, and that was back in '08 when with the trouble with the financial institutions. It stabilized the banks. It gave people who invested in the banks courage to continue keeping their money in there. So the FDIC insurance for savings accounts and checkings accounts would be about $250,000. The FDIC insurance in regards to the banks themselves are insured through FDIC, which is a totally different form of insurance. It's what the banks are insured for. They're covered. The FDI insurance that we're talking about, $250,000, is the customer's insured for. If that helps you out on what I'm trying to say. There's two different types. It's the same insurance company, two different insurance agreements.
If we put $500,000 into the account, and for whatever reason, bank went bust, we would be insured on that money up to only $250,000.
No, we have pool accounts, and our pool accounts are insured for the full faith and credit of the federal government, so our money is completely insured.
Thank you. That was what I was looking for.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council members?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening.
Good evening, Councilwoman.
Thank you very much for your very, very detailed information. I was shocked at how much information you had on there, and it was a lot to read. So I do have a couple questions in regards to the resolution.
Yes, ma'am.
My one question is, you gave us a sample of a resolution that was passed in 2002, and you said that this wasn't done since 2002. So this particular resolution that was passed in 2002 said financial institutions will be designated as investment depositories for surplus funds, period. Okay. Now, our resolution that we have in here talks about the deposit for surplus funds, and then it says for the city of Warren, and then it itemizes them, and then it says where an interest-bearing account will be entitled general account. Why is that on there versus what we approved in the past? I'm just curious.
When you open accounts with these banks, we're going to open them as a general account. When we want to put money into them, we will come back to you, and will come in a form of a CD. When it says opening of accounts, it will come back to you for the specific amount that we're putting in here. This is allowing us to put these banks on our designated list, and then they'll come back to you when we want to open a separate account for a CD or pool accounts or savings accounts or checking accounts, it'll come back to you.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know why.
Yeah, it says
you know, if-
interest-bearing account will be entitled general account, so it makes it sound like, I
Right,
don't
if
know.
council wants to have that line removed, I don't...
Is there any significance in that through the chair to the city attorney?
Ms. Michaels?
Thank you. I am sorry, I do not know of any significance to that language.
Okay, because it just
Interest-bearing
didn't meet
account
the
would be-
old language that we did, and, you know, it added interest-bearing, and then it added a title, so I was just curious if we're only approving the banks, and it's just the list of banks, then why are we being, you know, specific with the titles of the accounts? And I don't know how the rest of council feels about it, but that's just something that I noticed in there, and...
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Michaels?
If the intent is to make the deposit into an interest-bearing account, I think that would be a sufficient motion on council's behalf, with Ms. Carey's permission.
Absolutely, I don't see any problem with that whatsoever.
Okay. All right.
And we want as much interest as
True,
possible.
well, even though there's not much to get there right
There
now.
is, actually, right now, there's not much to get, and so safety is the number one concern with us.
Now, there was also a criteria that was brought up in the backup. It says, are all these banks eligible under state of Michigan guidelines to receive public money too? Everything's been approved with all those too.
Absolutely, these all meet the criteria of the banks that set forth in our resolution, meet all the federal, state, and local guidelines, right down to our city ordinance, because I've included our investment ordinance, and it complies with our investment ordinance as well as state guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion from council members? Just a quick clarification, are we asking for that removal?
Actually, she said that she would put it in an interest-bearing account.
Okay, so no
Any
need
of
to
them.
amend it.
So we don't need to amend it if that's the case.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-0.
Thank you, City Council, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Item number 13, audience participation.
Our first speaker this evening is Tony Police. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Tony, please, 8520 Darlene. I hope you can understand what I'm talking a little better anyhow. Trying to get over a cold. I've said this before. This is nothing against anybody, but when I hear the glowing reports from Mr. Fouts about what he did, and I'm glad he got a no increase out of my back pocket, that's fine. I appreciate that. But I'm still waiting for some of his appointees to start walking on water. Uh, 11A. Did I understand correctly that they're giving people $1,000 for every year, up to $25,000 to leave, and then hire people in at a lower rate and everything? What are we saving there? Are we saving anything? If we're going to give them $25,000 and they're still going to get a pension and everything, now we're going to hire somebody else in at a lower rate? Doesn't seem like we can save much money doing it that way. uh, 11I, change order number 11. That is absolutely ludicrous to think that you're going to have 11 change orders on a thing, and it's increasing the contract $1 million. how much all them 11 change orders, does anybody have any idea what every change order was? You have that in figure? It seems like I can understand 1 or 2 change orders because you're doing something, you run into something, you do it, and this and that, but 11 change orders is way too many, people. I'm trying to stay as calm as I can. Again, I appreciate Mayor Fouts and no water rate increase and everything. And I also appreciate the fact that he's made Mr. Green our new police commissioner, and I wish him well in his new job. One other thought now. Well, I guess I'll just end it by saying, everybody have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
I'll see you at the next meeting. And I'm wondering when Mayor Fouts is going to appoint people for the dividing up the city. Oh, that's one other thing, please, if I need time. One other thing, it won't last long. It seems to me that the way that thing was, the proposal was put, I hate to go back to that proposal because I know there's a lot of blah, blah, blah about it. The way it was put forward on the, what's the name, it seems like we should already know what we got to do next instead of everybody up in the air about what happens next. If that proposal was proper, and I'm going to say legal, it seems like we should know where to go from where we're at now. But unless I'm reading it wrong again, I've been known to be wrong, not too many times, but I've been known to be wrong. We should know exactly where we're at. Again, have a nice Thanksgiving, and I wish you well.
Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving. Our next speaker is Tina Baker. I don't see her. We'll go on to the next, Emily Fleischer. Don't see her as well. Keith O'Higgins. Good evening.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Warren TV's broadcast. It's improved immensely over the years. It's very watchable now, and thank you for covering tonight's city council member. I'm here to call out Mr. Fouts for his racial and ethnic slur at the November 10th Korean Veterans Ceremony. Mr. Fouts uttered a racial stereotype, then used his political position to cover it up. He said in front of 400 plus attendees, some of who are still in this audience, that he wanted to thank the Koreans for moving to Warren because he now has somebody to do his shirts right. It's my belief that Warren's government officials should be inclusive as opposed to exclusive, and stereotypes from our leaders should not be tolerated. As progressive Warren citizens, we should be fostering a politically correct atmosphere. I remember under the last administration, Mayor Steenberg received criticism and heat for uttering the N-word. How and why have we changed? Is it more? It's more to add salt to the political wound because, Mr. Fouts, you're not immune from criticism for his racial slur. And to add more salt to the wound, Warren TV's rebroadcast 2 days later censored Mayor Fouts' Korean stereotype. It was a 20-minute plus speech, and that 30-second soundbite was omitted. My biggest problem is that Mayor Fouts is being hypocritical. If early in his so-called transparent administration, he fired a city employee for copying polka DVDs with the city equipment, but now he has the political foot in his mouth, it's okay for city employees to edit his speech with city equipment. Why is it, Mr. Fouts, it's okay for you to use city equipment for your uses and utter stereotypes without repercussion? if we have learned anything from history and the whole Watergate scandal, it's that the cover-up is worse than the crime. Mayor Fouts, you need to apologize to the Korean Americans and the residents of Warren and have that speech rebroadcast for all to see in its entirety. In that speech, you praised Harry Truman. Well, I want to praise another American president, Ronald Reagan, and quote him. First, before Reagan was president, at a fundraiser, he told the joke, how can you tell there's a Pollock at a cockfight? He brings a duck. How can you tell there's an Irishman at the cockfight? He bets on the duck. How can you tell the Italian's at the cockfight? The duck wins. Mr. Fouts, if that was your way of being funny, great. Stand by your joke, don't hide it. My second Reaganism is, tear down that wall, Mr. Fouts, that wall of hypocrisy and censorship. Say, I'm sorry, and show the whole speech.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Our
you.
next speaker is Henry Krzysztofczyk. Good evening.
Good evening. It's a hard act to follow. Madam President, members of council, Henry Krzysztofczyk. I want to speak on a subject that's been bothering me. We have 3 council people here that are ex-officials. Mark Liss, Donna, and Stevens. Seems to be a lot of controversy over a payment of $50 for a meeting. That troubles me. Mark Liss, you've been beat up by at this microphone by residents for not attending the DDA meeting that you're ex-official. I have to admire you, but you never told them why. The reason for that is it's held at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Mr. Liss would have to leave Royal Oak, come over here, and that's time lost from his occupation. He works for a living. No compensation. And the question is also questionable whether his employer would tolerate that. Scott Stevens, you also attend 1 o'clock retirement board ex-officials. When's the last time you were there? That starts at 1 o'clock and goes to maybe 2, 3 o'clock. The reason you're not there is because the travel time, coupled with the time you're there and going back, far exceeds the time that you would save by going back. In other words, you lost time from your job. Now you've got Donna Comartin, which is a commissioned real estate agent. She makes her living by putting time in. When she leaves her job, middle of the day at 4 o'clock to attend a building authority meeting, is there for an hour and comes back, and there's also prep time, what have you. She gets compensated $50 for that. All right? Let's set the tables different. Let's hold these 3 meetings at 7 o'clock at night. Mark Liss can make it, Donna can make it, Scott Stevens can make it. However, you're going to have to pay time and a half overtime for all the city employees. And you're begrudging Donna $50? Come on. And yet, the state law mandates that. The Public Act 31 says you get per diem on that. The bylaws, the Articles of Incorporation, the Home Rule Act, the Charter. And yet we make an issue out of that. It's wrong. Also, in addition to, the money does not come out of the general fund. It comes out of their budget. They're autonomous. And the other one is a retirement pension board, which I feel that any ex-official that's on there should be compensated for that time like the other communities pay their people. That money would not come out of the general fund either. Now, I've been telling Donna, stand down. Let one of you people go up there and see how many people will volunteer to take those two positions. Who's got the time to do it? And yet you give her a hard time. For what? Of course, they beat up on Mark Liss. Let's level the playing field, people. Don't begrudge $50. Think about how much money she's saving the city. Let's do it at 7 o'clock. Or better yet, let's not even have an ex-official there. Now, how are you going to have the coverage? And I know the person who's behind this, and Scott Stevens, stand down. You're not going to gain anything on it, you're going to lose. Because we'll point this out. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James McDaniel. Good evening.
Hey, how's it all going? It's this time of the year again. The old newsboys are back out on the street trying to help children out and families. No child without a Christmas is our motto. And I'd appreciate the city of Warren will come out and make sure that quite a few kids in the city of Warren don't go without a Christmas. It's whatever you can give, make sure a child doesn't go without a Christmas. Black Friday is the kickoff of the Christmas holidays. And right now, Daryl of the Warren Goodfellows don't have enough paper sellers. Daryl's not in a real good health to go out there and sell himself. So I'm asking citizens of Warren to please stand up and help the Warren Goodfellows because the need is greater than ever this year. Believe it or not, it's getting worse. I don't care what anybody says. So we're asking the citizens of Warren to contact the Warren Goodfellows to help sell papers and to take and make it a better world for a lot of people in the city of Warren that ain't got much, if anything at all. I'm not here tonight to criticize the city of Warren at all. I'm here to help the citizens of Warren because you know what? They're the ones that make this city.
Do you have a number?
The number to get a hold of Daryl is 351-2147. Warren Goodfellows.
586-351?
Yep.
2147?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I just, for those watching that want to.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll be out on 9 Mile Road in Van Dyke starting Friday, all the way until Sunday, selling Goodfellow papers. The Goodfellows helped my family out when I was a kid, and when my parents lost their job back in the late 80s, the late 70s, early 80s. Remember when we had that gas crisis and basically what we got going on right now? It's my time to give back to the citizens. So please, when you see somebody out there with a Warren's Goodfellows jacket on or carrying a paper, satchel, and standing on the corner, dime, quarter, dollar, just think how many kids out there that'll brighten their day come Christmas Eve and Christmas morning when they're able to open a gift. So remember, no kid without a Christmas. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Gloria Sanker. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. On the way here, I saw a couple flags waving, and I couldn't help but think of Marty. God rest his soul. There was a huge upset in this recent election, and America got the turnaround message, thank God. Now these elected officials will be held accountable. It's not going to be like before. Elect new people and forget what they're doing? No. These newly elected officials are going to be watched, and they're going to be held accountable. We humans are hard-pressed to think different from how we always voted. We were brought up believing in a certain party, and that was the way we voted for most of our lives. That has finally changed, thank God. That means we're maturing as a nation. People are aware that the parties have failed us, that government has failed us, that many politicians have failed us, even though we've given them a lifetime of pension and benefits. Like Wall Street, they're greedy though, and enough is never enough. They're all about politics instead of people. and the people are tired of it. The party has proved they don't listen to us. We found that out when they passed the health care bill and never gave us a chance to vote on something that affected our entire life, and in fact may prematurely take our lives early because of rationing. What do they care? It doesn't affect them. Laws should never be made where the politician is exempt, but the people must obey. The party has proven they don't listen to us, and this is why there was a new mandate in this last election. Moreover, I think this has spilled over to all elected officials. In our city, Proposal 2 passed. The people want 7 council members instead of 9. They want smaller and more responsible government. And they overwhelmingly want representation specific to their area. And these people will be held accountable. We have county commissioners from districts, and now there will be council people from districts. Government is changing. People demand it. I encourage the residents to get involved. Listen to at least one talk show a week and keep informed. They can't fool you if you keep informed. This will keep your politicians doing what you sent them to do instead of the nonsense that they often choose to do. We as a country and as a city are at crossroads. Our politicians will only be as good as we demand of them. They have phone numbers and emails. There are letters to the editors. Don't just complain. Use the technology we have. Let them know what you want from them and that they will be held accountable. You know, America is a great country, but it won't stay that way unless we get involved. We need to start getting ready for the next election now. One person asked me on the campaign trail, "What keeps you motivated, Gloria?" I says, I told them my love for America. There is no better country. So we are the Garden of Eden in this world. Let's not keep choosing bad fruit to run our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Joe Dabrowski. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. I got to tell you, I was kind of disappointed that the votes on the contracts went the direction they did. It's a sad, sad state of affairs when our elected officials feel they have the right to give away our money all willy-nilly. I'll tell you what, I would love for somebody to give me $100 to go buy a new car that I wouldn't go buy if I didn't intend to buy a new car anyway, first of all. So for the mayor to feel that he has the right to do that is just absolutely shameful. For him to just take liberties with our tax dollars like that. And up to $25,000 to retire. I agree with Mr. Police. We're not going to save anything. Because somebody who may have been contemplating retiring 3, 4, 5 years early, well, now you just gave an incentive to stick around at the higher rate of pay. So you really didn't accomplish anything but costing the city a ton of extra money. And what right does anybody have to get an additional $25,000 tax dollars? I don't know of anybody who deserves to be able to reach in our pockets and take $25,000 that they have no right to. Because as far as I'm concerned, they get a paycheck every week. Most of them, not all of them, most of them work for their money, they earn their money, and that's all they earn. They don't go above and beyond. They're not superheroes. They get their paycheck. They should be glad they have a job that is so overpaid, it's ridiculous. I think in the next budget, now that all these contracts are settled, I think every single full-time employee in the city should get a 25% pay cut, and they should be happy to have a job. But you guys, by a vote of 7-1, thank you, Ms. Camp, up to $25,000. You guys have got to be out of your ever-loving mind. I think you guys should personally have to pay it. That has got to be one of the most ridiculous things you guys have done. And somebody said, oh, they approved it. Well, of course they're going to approve it. They just hit the jackpot, and they didn't even have to pull the arm on a slot machine. That's free money for them. Oh, well, they gave up some of their health insurance. They didn't give up nothing. They're lucky they have a job. Go put out applications for their job at minimum wage. You know how many people would be standing in line for those jobs? These government jobs are the biggest gravy train on the planet. And these people you're giving them wheelbarrows full of money like it's your own. You've got to be kidding me. 11I, Mattioli's. You guys have got to change the way you guys word your contracts. Because I'll tell you what, you guys have it listed as change order number 11. I don't really think that's considered a change order. I think it's a contract extension on somebody who does a spectacular job, and they've held their contract price for how many years? Send that out to bid and see if anybody will do that work for what they're charging. Man, why can't our city employees hold their price for 4, 5, 6 years? That's not going to happen because they're not grateful to have a job. The Mattioli brothers, man, they're lucky, they're happy, they're working. So they'll hold their price. And yet we got people complaining because, oh, we're giving out no-bid contracts. I just don't get the logic. And then the last thing I want to say congratulations to Commissioner Green. I told a couple of you guys, I thought a long time ago he deserved the job. I think the person who had the job wasn't the right person for the job. I think we need somebody from inside the police department who has the experience, knows the people, and I think he can get the job done. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Our next speaker is William Barnwell. Good evening.
Good evening. Regarding the budget that has been passed for the coming year and the debate about the water hikes that are, or the water freeze, I want to thank those involved in the city who are trying to hold rates steady for this coming year, whether it is an approaching election year or not. It is tough times right now for many people. And I appreciate those in the city that are speaking up and are concerned about the times that we're in and trying to hold costs under control, because from the federal level all the way down to a local level, there seems to be this concept of a divine right that whenever the city or the state or the federal government needs money, it is always to be passed down to the taxpayer. So I think it's a good thing that we're trying to hold our costs steady and see the tax increase or rate increase is always the last and final resort. No matter what the issue might be. And one of the things that the mayor had mentioned that I was reading in the Warren Weekly was that one of the reasons that there's been continued concern in recent years of why rates have gone up is because there's less people in the city, more foreclosures. You all are well aware of the arguments. And it seems like whether there's more people consuming the water or less people consuming the water is always a question of whether or not rates need to be raised. And it's good to examine the entire public sector so that the burden is not first and foremost placed on the taxpayer. But the big issue that I'm passionate about and why I wanted to come up here was not to opine on something that you've already talked about at length, but I think the key thing is attracting more younger people to the city. And not just younger people, but people who are looking for a good quality place to live, that they would see that in the city of Warren. I grew up here, spent most of my life in the city, moved away, took a job in the Flint area, then in St. Clair County, and now have moved back to the city. And I work in Royal Oak. My wife works in Auburn Hills. And when we were looking for a place to live, we were looking at different, the markets for different housing locations. And we found out, I could have went and lived right down the street from where I worked. But what we found out was for the cost of living and the cost of housing that in the city of Warren, the city that I grew up in, that I felt that I would never return to, had more house for the money, lower taxes. At least in our area, the schools were satisfactory. And we need to present it as a positive and good place to live. And with different citizens over the years who have come to this podium and spoken, there's a lot of anger. A lot of anger directed at you, directed at the mayor, directed at things that we can't do anything about. I've long said government cannot just wave a magic wand and fix all of our problems. You saw it a couple years ago on a national level, that there was going to be a new turn and new hope and dreams, and now just 2 years later, everybody has turned around. And at some point, citizens need to get it into their system that government is not going to be the answer to all of our problems. And for those who talk about, well, you know, we can't move to the south end of the city of Warren because the schools aren't the best. I was talking to somebody who recently moved back to the south end, who said, we can get a good value for a house in the south end. Now, people can criticize the schools, but we as parents are going to do our jobs and not just hand over and outsource the responsibility fully to the teachers. And we're going to do what we can to make sure that our child has a good education. The last couple times that I've traveled out of the country, I've seen commercials for country of Colombia trying to attract people to visit there. And it's basically a publicity campaign because Colombia has a reputation that if you go there, something bad might happen to you. And I think the commercial that they have is not very effective. That's trying to reach a Western audience. But we, at some point, have to do some type of intentional type of outreach to those who are 30 and under, those who are first-time home buyers, those who have been hit by the economic crunch, who are looking for affordable housing, that when you survey the land, like I did recently, and you are looking for a good value for your home, steady taxes, that you're going to find that if you compare Warren to surrounding localities, that you're going to find that Warren is a very comparably affordable place to live, still can be a wonderful place to raise a family. And rather than just taking out our anger, that public anger, which I understand, rather than just coming to the podium and taking out our anger, we as citizens have to take responsibility. The mayor has often said, even when he was on city council, you know, the buck stops here. And yes, leaders should be held to a higher standard, but the citizens need to hold themselves to a high standard. The citizens make a decision at the ballot box every 2 or 4 years, depending on what they vote for. And something that I've been encouraged about, I remember in years past, several of you, I don't know, several of you I've met only briefly, but I remember at one point, many of you were written off. The establishment said that you could not do it, that you were just rabble-rousers, or you were just gadflies. And you proved all of them wrong. And we're seeing a turn, we're seeing changes in this area because you just look at this past election, a young man from Warren, 29 years old, almost unseated an incumbent for the state house, who was off busy campaigning for a number of other people. And what it showed is that if you work hard, if you knock on enough doors, if you talk to enough people, you can have a fighting chance. You don't have to have big labor. You don't have to have big business. What you need to have is drive and determination.
Mr. Barnwell,
Yes.
if you can please conclude, we do have a 3-minute.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
That's okay.
I just wanted,
continue your comments.
it's been about 10 years since I've been to the microphone, and I don't mean to ramble, but what I just want to say is I just want to encourage people, citizens who might be watching, to take a positive, proactive stance, to be involved, and to become a part of the process. Reach out to people to move to the city, get involved in local government. We're seeing more and more people who are taking a stand, who are breaking down the barriers, as many of you have. Congratulations. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you, you too. Next agenda item?
Next council item is item number 15A. This is Councilwoman Kathy Vote's item. Discussion in Ray naming the new park on 9 Mile Road.
Ms. Vogt?
Madam Chair, thank you, Madam Chair. Don't necessarily have to take council action tonight. I wanted to get some views and ideas. When this car park is built, we will need to put a name on it. I'm not sure, I don't think we have a procedure in place, although Ms. Michaels told me earlier tonight we do have a Parks and Rec Commission. I know we have one on paper, but I don't think we have had any appointees there, or that it's an active commission. In any event, name it after Joe, yeah. I have been approached by one Warren resident who would like to see his grandfather named, and that would be Alan Lepard. Mr. Lepard he first came to Warren in 1946, before Warren was a city. He participated, he was active, and helped to build this city, make it what it is. He was a World War II veteran in the Air Force. He served this country. He was on the Fitzgerald School Board. He helped the plans for the Macomb Community College. He helped found the Warren's Crime Prevention Program. This is exactly the kind of individual we need to look at. He was named as a Senior Citizen of the Year. He was named Outstanding Volunteer of the Year. Just a wonderful, wonderful man who gave a lot to the city, to the county, and that's what I'm looking for. The rest of council, I don't know what everyone thinks.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Vogt, I serve on the Parks and Rec Commission. We had discussed this issue at the last meeting, and in fact, our next meeting is December 6th. When we discussed this, the commission, headed by Henry Bowman, took a ballot, not a secret ballot, but raise of hands of who we should name the park after. Mr. Bowman had said that the mayor will take any nomination under advisement, whether it's from the commission, whether it's from the council, and he is open to letters, phone calls, emails, etc., with a recommendation for the park, and he would take all of them into advisement and then make a choice. The Parks and Rec, for the record, the Parks and Rec Commission decided to recommend to the mayor to name the new park after Owen Jacks, due to the fact that it's on the parking lot, or in the parking lot, the whole parking lot of where Owen Jacks is. So it would be called the Park at Owen Jacks. But after I talked to the mayor about it, he said that everything would be taken under advisement, and he is more than welcome to any suggestions. So that would be, I guess, the official procedure, and it is up to the mayor to make the choice. Because I know this was an issue with naming streets or courts or whatever after veterans from Warren who perished in either Afghanistan or I know the previous council had discussed this issue, but when it comes to parks, I guess the procedure, according to the legal, is the mayor makes the recommendation, or the mayor takes all recommendations and he makes the choice.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warner, because I was not aware of that. We hadn't heard anything on the Parks and Rec Commission at all. I'll speak with you privately, but I would like to know what the considerations were, or who else was considered, and perhaps we can refer Mr. Lepard to the mayor for consideration. That's what our charter says, that the mayor has the sole control. Is that correct? Madam, through the chair to Ms. Michaels.
Sole control over naming a park. The mayor is the administrative. He's responsible for all commissions and boards. So as far as naming a park, I believe he would make a recommendation, and the decision. We're coming to. Well, I'm not certain about the procedure, Ms. Councilwoman Vogt, but we'll study up on that.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we refer this issue to the city attorney's office so that we can find out exactly what the procedure is.
Motion by Ms. Vogt.
I will be sure to bring it up at the next Park and Rec Commission meeting again.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Comartin?
Just as a suggestion to Mrs. Vogt, too, with all this detailed information, it might be a good idea to, for one, forward it to the commission, and two, forward it to the mayor's office with all the detail for Mr. Lepard.
This was sent to It was emailed by Gary Lepard to all council members
Yeah.
a while back, and so,
Right.
with that request. So I would hope that Mr. Warner would take that.
Well, one of the questions that I was going to ask at the next meeting is when is the deadline? When does the park have to be named? So hopefully by our first meeting in December, we'll have a few answers.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I have a motion to refer the naming of park procedure, is that right? By Ms. Vogt, supported by Ms. Comartin, to send it to the city attorney. Ms. Vogt,
Yes.
Ms. Comartin,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Liss,
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Camp, yes. The item passed, 8-0.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Vogt, support to adjourn by Mr. Liss. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and the meeting has adjourned at 10:25 PM.